awesome to have air conditioning on the car. It was this First Street. I found First Street, but it wasn't the right First Street. It's like, are you kidding?
I wait. Yeah, I know.
I hate it when you get somewhere you don't know where they're at. You're like, okay, how do I get out of here?
Anyways. Oh yeah, big great truck. Chevy.
Welcome to the Charter Township of Comstock Board Meeting, Monday, October 6, 2025. This meeting is now called to order. May we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Looking for a motion to approve the agenda.
I move that we approve the agenda as presented.
Support.
Motion made by Clerk Bochamp, supported by Treasurer Bloomfield. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Agenda is approved. Moving along to public comments. A citizen may state their name and address and may speak only one time for no more than 3 minutes. This time may not be given to another citizen to extend their time. The person speaking has the floor and no other citizen shall speak during someone else's time. During this time, you'll be making statements to the board without discussion from board members, but you're welcome to make an appointment with a supervisor or superintendent to discuss your comments further. Their contact information is located by the door. Please keep comments clean and respectful.
Karen Height. The hate in our township needs to stop. The 2 Facebook pages, one going after Ben and Sandy, the other going after Trustee Cherry and Scott Hess, and the board members going after each other, it needs to stop. The armchair warriors, keyboard warriors, the behind closed door meetings with only partial board members, it's tearing our township up. We need to get along. We need to work together for a common goal for our township. That's our goal. Life is too short and too fragile for all of this hatred. I would like the board to pass a motion to either change the date or move back the start time of Thursday's Planning Commission meeting for those that will be attending Nate Dorlag's funeral. Nate was a disabled veteran that proudly served our country. All he wanted to do was serve this township and his Lord and Savior. For the remainder of my 3 minutes, I would like to honor Nate with silence, so we may all reflect on our own imperfections and not those of others. Rest in peace, Nate. Godspeed. Thank you for respectfully, for this moment of silence for Nate.
Thank you, ma'am.
My name is Dina O'Connor, and I come to you with broken heart. I want to remind everybody that words carry weight, that they shape perception, stir emotion, and set the tone for how we treat one another. When used with care, words can heal, unite, and inspire. But when weaponized, they can divide, intimidate, and cause real harm. We've seen how careless language, passive silence, or inflammatory rhetoric can escalate tensions. When leaders fail to model respect and accountability, it gives others permission to behave the same or worse. It fuels the flames instead of calming the storm. And in our community, the storm is no longer metaphorical, it's here. People's lives are being disrupted. Families are being targeted. Children are being dragged into adult conflicts. This is not just inappropriate, it's dangerous. Leadership is not about power. It is about responsibility. It is about setting a standard that others can follow. Right now, we need leaders who speak with clarity, compassion, and conviction. Leaders who understand that every word they say or fail to say has consequences. We're calling on our board members to lead by example, to reject intimidation in all forms, to speak out against harassment, to protect the vulnerable, and to remind this community we are better than this, because we are, but only if we choose to be. Proverbs 18:21 says the tongue has the power of life and death, and those who love it will eat their fruit. So either you eat the fruit of your healing words, or you eat the fruit of hatred and evil words. And I say all of this in respect and love for my friend, Nate Dortlag. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Hi, Tammy Keeler. Nate was a great deputy supervisor. He'd go around, drive around. People were out in their yards. He'd stop and talk to you. I don't see the rest of you doing that. He'd see you out there, ask how your day's doing. Stuff like that. He'd pull over on the side of the road. One day he stopped by and he so I'll give you $20 to take one of these kittens. He said, I got a lot of them at home. So we're sitting there having a conversation, and he remembered, I know this family. I used to date his uncle before he passed. Him and my son used to play together up north when we went camping and stuff like that. I never mentioned that I knew Nate because I thought someone would go against him, like they do, because Ben. I'm Ben's aunt. You all know that. But words do hurt. Somebody did get screenshots of something that was said on Facebook, and it wasn't too good. Anyway, you know, you guys have to start getting out there, talking to people. You might get respected a little bit more if you give respect. But I don't see none of that. And, yeah, he used to ride around a lot, just talk to people. He only had one son, and he was happy to have him. He's got 6 children now. I don't know if you guys are going to help him, the township's going to help out this family, but I hope you do, because they're going to need all the help that they can get. Anyway, not to get off the subject, but anyway, rest in peace, Nate. Another thing I think ought to be taken off with the ordinance officer is people pay for these houses. They pay taxes on their homes. If they want to park in their grass, they should be able to. I have a handicap lady that stays with me. I have to park my car by the door. That's an ordinance that, you know, it's just ridiculous. And they say that you can't have no tents and stuff in your yard. Well, my grandson uses his for a fort, so I don't know how that's gonna go. Anyway, I'm not here to complain. I'm just saying, go around, meet the people that voted for you. They are paying
Thank you,
your
ma'am.
wages. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Jason Tollers, and I'm a resident of Comstock Township. On September 29th, we heard from our township ordinance officer his deep concerns over the unhoused situation in Comstock. A recent report from Kalamazoo showed that a 19% increase in the unhoused living across the area. This includes some 176 children. I want to stress to this board, to this community, the importance of this discussion that we must urgently have, and how we must approach this with compassion and an eye towards building connection and community, and not just sweep this under the rug. We see encampments, and we see reflected in them our own humanity. We imagine for the briefest of moments, yourself on the street, no food, no bathroom, no comfy bed to rest your head on when you're tired. For some of us, this sparks fear. They begin to search for an excuse. Why don't they just get a job? They should have stayed off the drugs, or they aren't even from our own community. For others, they feel helpless, and for some yet, they stop and do what little they can, like offering a case of water. We often believe, I would get help if I became homeless, but that is far from the case. Kalamazoo Gospel Mission, which stands right now as the only resource available to our community, only has 500 beds and recently announced they are reducing that number. You are required to leave every morning, and it is not guaranteed that you will have a bed the next night. They do not allow pets. These rules can often make it difficult for the unhoused to find work, for if they cannot find their way to the shelter in time due to working, they might not have a place to sleep and certainly won't have a better day tomorrow at work. Let us be frank, all of us in this room right now are walking on a razor's edge. It is folly to believe that any of us are immune to the pressures of society or the dice of fate that we too could find ourselves fighting for our very survival on the streets of Comstock. Which is why it's so important that we understand this is our responsibility and our duty to make sure the least among us are cared for. And it will take all of us, not just Comstock, coming together to solve this. We must take a housing-first approach. We must enact policies that create services to aid finding drug rehabilitation for those in our community before they become homeless. We can build community-ran grocery stores focused on providing affordable, fresh food and ready-to-eat meals for our community. This is all hard work. It is a long road, and funding is scarce. But I believe if we try, we must try, we can make a difference. Which is why I would like to put my name to the board for consideration to the forming committee. I want to try, and I believe I can help. Please consider appointing Jason Tollhurst to the Comstock Committee on Homeless. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Hello, I'm Pam Zaborowski. I'm at 2345 West Glen Eagle Drive, and I'm talking about Nate. I don't know him as well as everybody else does here, but he volunteered to help build a fence I needed with some other folks, but I got to chat with him when he was building the gate. And he was a very kind person. And I'll never forget how kind he was in a world of such unkindness. I don't know everything that's going on here. I just know him, the little bit that I did. And I am blessed that I met him. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome.
Good evening. My name is Dean Rockwell. I reside at 8178 Fawn Meadow Trail. I would like to start and thank your Parks and Recreation upkeep. I had a chance to go to Robert Morris this summer for the first time. I was sorry to see that people vandalized some flowers recently, but on a good note, I do appreciate the Parks and Rec, how they upkeep all the facilities around here in Comstock Township. I've lived all around the world and country, and this is some of the best. So I definitely appreciate your team's efforts in that. As well as the fine sentiments of this lady and others. I do want to bring attention, to this alarming and increasing defamation of veterans, their disability, by either this board through keeping silent or those near to you. I am the commander of the VFW post across the street. I am not here in that capacity. I am not here speaking on behalf of the Dorlag family or for them, but as a disabled veteran and a resident here of the township. But it is defamation to impugn someone's disability, even if done by those affiliated to you, whether in office, a trustee, or elected. It's reckless, it's unbecoming. These Facebook posts, direct texts that Nate shared with me at the post, trolling a disabled veteran who just so happened, in this case, William Knight, Nate Durlag, to both be deputies that were nominated and appointed, not elected officials here, not voted in. Those are similarities. They may disagree with proposals, vision, direction that the township is going. So their VA service and associated disability becomes a target of people's online hate. There is a rigorous process to receive even the smallest benefit or treatment from the Veteran Affairs. Let me tell you, some of the people in this audience, I'm sure, can attest to that. I didn't get to know Nate for very long, though he was a member, but I liked what I got to know during that time. The last time I was with him, he sat with me across the street and helped me clean bathrooms, move tables, and he was stressed. He was stressed about this upcoming, what could be an audit because of the careless things people are saying. He showed me these messages, and people asked me not to come here because of my capacity and speak upon it, and I was silent, and I wish I wasn't, because it's wrong. And you, sir, I'm asking you to show leadership, like you more eloquently said, for the members in here. I'm not going to make an appointment with any of you, but you can reach out to us and make an appointment as well. And I will talk to you about all of these other things that my veterans across the street. I will leave you with some of these screenshots that I understand there's pages of them that I'm not privy to, but these are the only ones I know firsthand. It's wrong, but you guys need to show some leadership, as others have said.
Thank you, sir.
I'll leave these to pass them around. Should any of you want to look at them, I understand there's many more.
Richard Hathaway, 3617 Silver Hills. Remembering Nathaniel Dorlag. I had known Nate Dorlag for just over 1 year. I met Nate because of expressed concerns of his with the potential installation of the BESS plant, the battery energy storage plant. This was the initial starting point for our friendship. I quickly realized that he was a learned man who studied the issues and a man involved with and concerned for things going on in this community. I soon learned Nate and his wife, Candace, have 6 children. One thing Nate felt very strongly about was protecting his children and other children and their well-being. Nate was very proud of his family and constantly worked to provide the best for them. I recall a lovely breakfast with the Dorlag and Martin families where Barbara and I joined on Memorial Day, a time to bring 10 children together. It was wonderful. I also will forever remember the many quick breakfast, lunch, dinners I spent with Nate, often picking his brain and receiving detailed explanations. He did his homework. Nate invited Barbara and me to visit his property, a property of which he was extremely proud. Barbara and I visited one afternoon where he provided a tour of the property. You quickly learned that it was Nate's sanctuary, and unquestionably the children's playground, research area, and school. Nate was a person you could trust, a person with whom I was proud to call a friend. Whenever we met, we shook hands, an open symbol of our mutual friendship and trust. Nate served our country in the Army in Iraq because he was a humanitarian proud of our country. His service is to be commended. Thank you, Nate, for all you have done for our country and our community. You will be remembered. May you rest in peace. God bless. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any further citizen comment this evening? Moving along to announcements for departments, boards, and commissions.
Good evening. I'm John Gisler, County Commissioner for 5 of the rural townships in Kalamazoo County. I apologize for my absence over the last few months, but you'll be seeing more of me than you probably care to in the future. And I just learned tonight of Nate's passing, and I've only known him for a few months, but what a neat guy. He was impressive in every way, shape, or form, and I wish I'd known him better. My comments for tonight are the new county building that may take place on the McDonald's plot down on Kalamazoo Avenue across from the current county building. I've received some comments, phone calls from some Comstock residents, and it got less heated real quick when I told them, hey, there were 2 people that voted against that, and I was one of them. So, cut me some slack, will you? This is something I'll defer to Nicole. You know more than I do about the testing of all the voting machinery that's going to take place tomorrow.
Oh, you're talking about the public accuracy test?
Yes.
On Thursday at 9 a.m.?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, the 9th. Never
Yes,
mind.
the whole county is testing at the same time.
Okay, very good. But you'll be testing here.
Here at 9 a.m. and the public is welcome.
And everybody's welcome to come watch them test the voting equipment. We are expecting to have a presentation from a consultant that did a elaborate study over what Kalamazoo fairs should look like in the future, if anything. And that's going to be presented tomorrow at the 4 o'clock hour, but it probably won't come up until 10 or 15 after. But be there at 4 o'clock and you won't miss it. Excuse me. The last thing I want to say, next to the last thing, is that on Monday, the 13th, we're going to have a presentation from the Chief Operating Officer of the the Great Lakes Drone Company out of Coloma. I think his name is Mike Clayton. Anyway, he's going to bring us up to date on what's been going on in the drone industry over the last year or two, and that's got to be one of the fastest moving and changing businesses known to mankind. So everybody's welcome. It'll be at Mark's Diner on Romance Road at 8:30 on Monday. So if you're interested or know somebody that might be, and we're more than happy, we don't drink at those breakfast meetings or anything like that, so if you want to send a young person who's really into drones, by all means, send them. And the last thing is that because I'm back here on first Mondays now, I will be departing as soon as I'm finished and going to the Waukesha meeting, which is only on first Mondays. So thank you very much, and I look forward to being here and rattling your cage often. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Did you make any putts?
No. As a matter of fact, I was doing a lot of good things, but putting was not among the things. Thank you.
Thank you. Larry, do you have anything for us?
Just briefly, mostly I'm here tonight to hear what's going on in your township. My name again is Larry Stahauer. I'm your liaison commissioner from the Road Commission. The good news I bear, or really it's from the state, they're saying we're going to get more money for roads. Specific in our county, Kalamazoo County, it sounds like a magnitude of $10 million. That's 1/3 of our annual MTF funds. I don't know details. I know it's targeted at local roads and bridges. So we will be having lots of discussions internally and with our township partners of how to use those additional funds. and much needed. So greatly appreciated. Several of you came to our open house September 24 to learn about the Road Commission. And thank you for taking that opportunity to come visit there. We do have a new road commissioner, Tony Kennedy, a veteran. So with that, I'll stop. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry. Moving along to the consent agenda, we have the Township Board meeting minutes, September 29th, 2025, budget adjustments, and bills payable, October 7th, 2025. I would be looking for a motion for approval of the consent agenda.
Supervisor Martin, before we do the consent agenda, I would like to have a change made on the Township Board minutes for 2020, or for September 29th, please.
And what would those be?
Underneath the treasurer for discussion on the millage reduction calculations, they failed to mention that the treasurer even had any conversation to do with anything with that. I feel it's important that it's noted that the treasurer did her job for that and discussion was made. I wasn't even mentioned in it, so I would appreciate having my name in at least the discussion. Thank you.
Perhaps the recommendation would be truth and taxation hearing with discussion from, adding in discussion from Treasurer Bloomfield?
Correct, along with explaining the millage rates for the township operating, the library millage, road millage, senior millage, and law enforcement. And thank you for making the change.
I would be looking for a motion with approval with the changes as presented for the consent agenda.
I move we make a motion to approve the consent agenda with the changes as amended.
Support.
Motion made by Trustee Cherry, supported by Trustee Pratt. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Consent agenda is approved. We have no presentations. Moving along past business, through fire and rescue, and now into planning and zoning. We have, in planning and zoning, we have the second reading of ordinance number 561 at 7667 Arden. It's a rezoning request.
Supervisor, that was, the agenda was amended on Friday, so that was actually, it needed to be pulled off because it wasn't noticed.
Put it in the paper first.
Okay, so the second.
So that wasn't on the agenda.
Okay.
It'll be on for the next meeting on the 20th.
Okay, so no planning and zoning.
No
business.
planning and zoning
Okay.
tonight.
And then moving along to clerk, a proposed 2026 holiday and township board meeting schedule.
Okay, so this is just to look at holidays and township board meeting dates for next year. As far as the township board meeting dates, it is the first and third Monday, except when there is a holiday or an election. So as you'll see, some months like May has one proposed meeting date, August has one proposed meeting date, September has one because of elections and holidays. So total there are 20 meetings, I believe, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, 20 meetings proposed for next year. And then also the list of holidays, which follow the schedule, the holidays that we do typically take off throughout the year. And this is just for the township board. The planning commission will approve their own schedule. The DDA approves their own schedule. The parks has already approved their schedule. ZBA approves their own as well.
Any questions for Clerk Beauchamp? Do you need any action or anything from us?
We do need a vote on it.
I'd be looking for a motion for the approval of the 2026 holiday and township board meeting schedule.
I make a motion that we, the board, do a vote on the proposed 2026 holiday and township board meeting schedule as stated by clerk.
Motion made by Trustee Pratt.
Could I just make one comment? Could you, Trustee Pratt, could you do that as a resolution? Because it should be resolution, roll call vote on the meeting dates. Yes, thank you. I propose that we make a resolution for the proposed 2026 holiday and township board meeting schedule as indicated from Clerk Bochamp.
Motion made by trustee Pratt,
Support.
supported by trustee Cherry. Roll call vote?
Trustee Pratt,
Yes.
trustee Amos,
Yes.
trustee Cherry,
Yes.
clerk Bochamp, yes, supervisor Martin,
Yes.
treasurer Bloomfield,
Yes.
trustee McIver is absent, motion carried. Okay. And then my next item is the November 4th election report. We have mailed 3,287 ballots. 555 have been returned, or about 16%. The Election Commission is meeting at 8:30 on October 16th to appoint election inspectors. And as Commissioner Gissler mentioned, 9 a.m. is the public accuracy test, and the public is welcome to attend either or both meetings. The last day to register to vote via email or online is Monday, October 20th. After that, you must register here in the clerk's office. Absentee ballots can be requested online or in the clerk's office, and sample ballots are on our website to view. And that's all I had.
Any questions for Clerk Bochamp? Thank you, Clerk Bochamp. Moving along to treasurer for weather siren discussion.
Yes, I asked to have this put on the agenda. I feel like we've done our due diligence in getting numerous bids, having numerous discussions, and I think it's time we move forward with that. So with that being said, I'd like to make a motion that we accept the bid from West Shore Services for $297,490. And we approve that project for the 2026 capital improvement project.
Support. Motion made by treasurer Bloomfield, supported by trustee Amos. Opening up for discussion. Treasurer Bloomfield.
This is something that our residents have asked us repeatedly that we work on and do. And as I said, I want to thank my deputy, Mr. Knight, for all the work he put into this, because he did put a lot of work into this and helped do the presentations. And I just feel like we can't wait any longer because prices could go up. So I think it's time we put it into our budget and move forward with it. Thank you.
Thank you, Treasurer Bloomfield. Clerk Bochamp.
Yes, I was under the impression from my memory that we talked last board meeting about having Brett put this in the budget so we could see what it would look like. And the budget is not in front of us tonight. And Scott will be presenting the CIP later. We haven't even talked numbers for the budget. I don't think we're ready to make a decision tonight, so I'm not prepared to vote on this.
Trustee Pratt.
Yes, as Clerk Bochamp had mentioned, and I think I mentioned at our last meeting, that it's very important to get the figures before we make any move ahead. And I did also indicate that from my time in Kalamazoo, I felt more assured when I did hear a siren. So I'm not voting, or at this point, against or for at this point, but I need to see the figures. That's a lot of money from what I've seen at the work that you and your deputy has gotten through consults. But that's a lot of money to put out for our residents, and I'd like to see more feedback too. And so I'm not ready to make a move at this point in time before seeing those figures. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Pratt. Trustee Amos?
Well, I thought that Brett approved this and he said that it could be done, and so I think it's a good idea, and I think we need to do it. We need to move on.
Thank you, Trustee Amos. Trustee Cherry?
I was of the same mindset, though. I thought we were waiting for the budget to come out. And also, I know that there was a discussion briefly, however it be, about potentially putting it on the ballot at some point, because I would love for people to vote on it personally. That's just my personal opinion on it, because it is a lot of money. And I do commend Treasurer Bloomfield and Deputy Knight for what they've done. They've done a lot of legwork. So I'm just not totally comfortable in voting on it just yet either. So for that reason.
Thank you, Trustee Cherry. On the July 16th, 2025 letter to the board, there was the 3 scenarios. The scenario 2 included the sirens could be included as a capital improvement project and budgeted at an optimal time in the future with a projected fund balance at 23% of 2026 expenditures and greater clarity expected later this year regarding the final 2025 numbers and the 2026 budget. This option allows for more informed planning and potential inclusion in next year's budget. So I was just curious as far as like those numbers of that forecast, what would we see further than that?
Well, Brett's off on a conference, so we met last week, went through preliminary budget, but then, as most people know, the road commission was awarded through the state $10 million through that. But with that, they took the gas tax away from the municipalities, which is a CVT revenue sharing. So they shifted the 6% sales tax, I should say. They shifted that into the road funds, which created a loss for all the townships. And I just got it, I can show the board, but Comstock next year with the CVT revenue sharing is estimated to lose $76,000 for revenue that we get from there. So some of this moving target, I'll go through the CIP. I wish I could do it right now. I mean, I could if you amended it, but just to tell you where, I put everything on there, and then whatever the board decides, we kind of filter it in and discuss it. So, but I don't believe we're ready yet because I got to get Brett with the solid number of what the revenue sharing is going to be depleted now.
Treasurer Bloomfield, would the board want to amend this conversation together to see what we want to do, if we want to move forward, if we want to table it? Do you have any insight?
I would be all right if the board would like to take on a motion, and I will make this motion and see if you're agreeable, that we do put it into the budget to accept a bid. I'm not sure if I'm headed in the right direction to appease all of you. Knowing that we have information in front of us that was in our board packet for scenario 1, 2, and 3, and I think we had all discussed that, you correct me if I'm wrong, that it was scenario 2 that we wanted to kind of phase in everything so that we made sure that we stayed within budget. And I see Scott shaking his head yes.
Yeah, no, I remember, because you said, just if I can interrupt there.
Sure, go ahead.
Because I think phase 2, if the board doesn't remember, was instead of all of the sirens, it was phasing in certain sirens for certain years. So,
right. Okay. We just wanted to make sure we stayed within our budget, and at least we were moving forward with it so that we knew that it was going to be put into the CIP.
So is your motion to essentially direct these funds to be allocated into the budget?
I would be agreeable with that, yes, thank you.
Trustee Cherry?
I just want to make sure I understand. So using phase 1, so like.
Using 2.
I mean,
Trustee Cherry.
I'm sorry, I said the wrong.
That's okay.
Phase 2, but only a portion of the funds allocated for the 2026 fiscal year. Is that what you're saying?
Correct, depending upon where we end up. I just want to make sure, Trustee Cherry, that this gets into the budget and we do move forward with it. Because if we don't sign and move forward and make a plan, the prices are going to go up. And when they start doing it, if we do move forward with this, there's a time frame for, as you heard the gentleman talk at the last board meeting, that they need to have time to set up to get it into their schedule to do the sirens.
So for example, like the loss of the revenue that Superintendent Hess was discussing, what happens if we start this process and then in the next fiscal year we lose even more revenue? And then is that going to affect the sirens at that point? Does that make sense?
I know what you're saying.
Yeah, okay.
I know what you're saying. You need to read through scenario 2 unless the supervisor would like to do that.
Are essentially your motions indicating get in there and get in that budget
Yes.
And get these sirens put in.
Yes. And we phase them in. And he was willing to work with us as far as a timeline and the financing on it. So it'd be like if we get to the point where we get, say, 4 or 5 installed, and we see that we don't have the money, we can backpedal that to our finance and move forward.
Okay.
To our availability.
Attorney Thal, would there be then like an amended motion that maybe picks a percentage, like if the 20% is the number? Do you have any recommendation on how to make a motion such as this?
Well, I think what you're doing is you're accepting a certain scenario, which I don't know if I've seen that, but, you know, you can refer to that scenario 2 if that's if that is the plan to go under scenario 2.
Preliminary on basically if the budget would go below the percentage?
Well, yeah, I think with a projected fund balance at 23% so you'd have to retain your fund balances, as I understand it, correct?
Yeah.
So it has to fit within your budget, retaining your 23% fund balance.
And I kind of don't want to put the CIP, but maybe it's some of that discussion here is in.
Could the board amend to maybe blend these conversations?
I can probably just speak at it, and then if you want to talk more when we get to the CIP, but, you know, there was, two new developments. One was the revenue sharing, the loss of that, and estimated 76. I'm sure it's going to probably be around that. And then 2, the clerk has informed us that next year for implementation of 27, you can probably talk a little bit about this, is that election equipment has to be replaced. And as of right now, we don't know, these are unknowns, but the state will not participate in any funding on them. And I think the Clerk
Beauchamp.
Yeah, I can speak on that. So it is a mandate from the state of Michigan. Every jurisdiction in the state has to replace their election equipment in 2027. So we do not have a choice to do this. We have to do it. And we were told to not expect any state help at all. There will not be any funding to help support us in procuring new election equipment. So it's hard to estimate at this point how much that will cost. The county is the one who leads the way with purchasing the equipment with input from the townships. But it's not an open bid process yet. So to estimate how much the equipment's gonna cost, it's a shot in the dark. Like we can kind of estimate, but we really don't know until those numbers come in. But we do have to have that by 2027. It is a state mandate.
Thank you, Clerk Beauchamp. Trustee Cherry?
Yep. So based on the proposal that you want us to accept, we could, in theory, get, let's just say 5 for the fiscal year 2026, skip 2027 if need be, because we need to allocate those funds elsewhere, and then regain that bid again 2028. But couldn't that potentially affect the cost as well? Or are they setting it in stone?
That one, I don't have the answer to that because you would be skipping a year. But the good thing was if you went with 5 the first year, we could place them strategically in areas where we would hit, you know, the majority of the population.
Is this motion contingent upon a percentage of the budget?
So I would, if I were you, I would just, it sounds like you want to just make that scenario 2 as the motion. Because what it does, I'll just read it. The sirens could be included as a capital improvement project and budgeted at an optimal time in the future, with the projected fund balance at 23% of 2026 expenditures and greater clarity expected later this year regarding the final 2025 numbers in the 2026 budget. This option allows for more informed planning and potential inclusion in next year's budget. So right now, the request is to put it, as I understand scenario 2, is to put it into the capital improvement plan. You're going to be going through your budget process now and coming up, and then you'll see what you can pay for, what you can't pay for. So it's just giving you flexibility. You're saying, yes, we're going to put it into our capital improvement plan, the sirens. We agree that we're going to try to acquire them, and then it's going to fit within your budget that you approve. So then when you get into budget approval, you'll be actually allocating what you want for the sirens for the upcoming year. And then whatever you do, next year when you look at your capital improvement plan, it's gonna, if you bought 3 sirens this year, it's gonna say, okay, now the next year you got 7 that you wanna buy. You look at your budget, determine what you can do out of that budget, and so on and so forth.
Thank you, Attorney Thaw, and perhaps that would address Trustee Cherry's question, is that if the price went up, we would still be looking at a percentage of a budget regardless if the price changed.
Yeah, that's, you're up to talking with the company about how long they would extend, the price for.
He did mention implementation, but he didn't give us a time frame to, like, would that be valid for a year, 2 years?
Right.
So,
That was my biggest concern, because, I mean, we can phase it like you want. I mean, that makes total sense. But then if they're not going to guarantee it's set in stone, then here, our next budget meeting, then it's going to be, okay, now we have to find additional funding because they just upped it a little because materials went up, price of labor went up, or what have you. That's my biggest concern at the moment.
So I could just raise this one question. So I looked into whether you could do this by special assessment. There is no format for a special assessment for this type of improvement. But you could, there's a potential way to finance it. You can use what's called installment financing, installment purchase financing, which you can buy it now, and then you basically pay for it over a period of time with tax-exempt interest on the purchase. So if you have to locking in the number may make sense. I don't know, that's something that maybe you have to explore more with the company as to whether they would allow you to just flexible, give you that flexibility to acquire them in the future. But if they're saying you got to lock in now, there are options to do installment purchase where you would borrow basically to pay for it over a period of time that can't exceed 15 years or its life expectancy of the sirens. So it allows you to pay for that, acquire them now, pay for them over a period of time. You pay would be amounted to tax-exempt interest, which is a lower interest rate than general borrowing rates. And there's a certain process that you have to follow to do that, but it's something that is a possibility.
Can I ask a question about that? So for the special assessment, you said we wouldn't have to do that, but if we wanted to explore that option, can that go on a ballot initiative? Because I really would like more community feedback on this.
So there is no special assessment process for weather sirens. There's a lot of other things you can specially assess for, you can't for that. And then in terms of putting it on a ballot, you cannot put that on a ballot. You could do a survey of your township, you could send out a survey or do, a computerized survey, whatever it might be, but you're not allowed to put it on a ballot. You can only put certain things that are allowed for by statute on a ballot. You can't ask for advisory questions. So you can't say, hey, would you like us to do these weather sirens on the ballot? Yes or no? We can't do that. You can do a survey, though.
As a millage, not as a millage question.
Well, you could certainly put it on as a millage if you wanted to do it that way, but not just, not as an advisory question.
and then Attorney Thaw, as far as like, if you were to do the financing portion, would the annual payment plus interest, would that then be allocated to that particular percentage of the budget? Not in total, like it would be divisible through the useful years of the loan.
Yeah, exactly. So you can spread it out. I don't know what the useful life of the siren is. It's probably at least, I would think, 15 years or something. So it allows you the flexibility to spread out those payments. And you can also, typically under those arrangements with the bank, you can prepay it. So like if you do want to just pay it off and be done with it at some point, you can also do that. So it gives you maximum flexibility. So it's just a consideration.
Now, would that need to be worded in a motion?
If the board wanted to consider that, if the board wanted more information on that, you could also, I think that you could look at that scenario too. But then, you could then consider, because scenario 2 is just, we're going to put it into the CIP, right? It doesn't mean that you're going to allocate the funds for it. that's going to be part of your budget process. So that gives you time, then you could still look at, what are the options for an installment purchase agreement? You can talk to a few banks to see what that arrangement is. Not all banks do that. It's just a special financing for government entities that you can use.
And if I can just go through that CIP a little bit, just to explain. So we have a committee, they kind of, it's the parks, we have Terry McIver's on it, which is absent today, and then myself, and then the fire department has their own CIP because they have their own funding. The parks, unfortunately in our budget, is funded through the township. So that's why you'll see parks on here, Neal Street Park. So there's their needs and wants, and then the DDA used to be on here, but technically the DDA is funded by themselves, so if they want funding from the township, they have to come to the township board and ask them, off the CIP, because in previous years, our other zoning administrator always had them on the CIP, and that really shouldn't have been on there. So I did put the kind of the wants on there, and then typically we go back, and if the board says, hey, we want to look at these different scenarios, that's just what you'll see and hear the needs. The election equipment was new, that just got added. The parks usually is the one that takes up a lot of our CIP because of as the gentleman said, we have nice parks and we want to keep those up, and so that's where you see some of the site work and then the old football field to do some stuff there. As you see the parks plow truck, it's not a need that we need this year, and it's used for winter plowing of the things. We do have an old one, and that can still be kicked down, and that's typically what we do. If we say we don't need that, we push it down. We've pushed different items over the years down, and then we look at it the following year. So I really would love to have the budget more in front so that really we can see what our total revenue is, and that's what Brett does, the projections, and what the projections are coming in towards the end of the year, and we're close, so he has a good eye on that. And then, so if the motion is to, inject that somehow and see how that looks, and maybe other things that have a need might need to be injected in there too. Because our IT department gave me yesterday some of the IT needs we need for servers to keep the operating going, but that typically I put in the budget under just their contracted services, but unless it's a big cost, and they have one big cost in there they brought forward, and I'm going to ask them if we can postpone that one more year. But we do have servers, and servers are not cheap, but they usually have a lifespan anywhere from 5 to 7 years. And then we get a little nervous, so I want to see if we can extend the server for another year. So,
thank you, Superintendent S. Trustee Amos, did you have anything?
No, I'm good.
Okay, thought you wanted to say something. Trustee Cherry?
Still on the fence about it because I totally get the need for it. We need these sirens. I think they'd be good for the community, especially in the denser populations. Maybe some of our elderly citizens, disabled, would help them. But to see the budget would be, for me, better to see it kind of moving forward. And like I said, I commend all the work you guys have done, Treasurer Bloomfield, because I'm sure it's not been easy, but.
Thank you, Trustee Cherry. Trustee Pratt, do you have anything?
Nothing further.
Clerk Beauchamp?
No, other than, for record, what was the motion?
The motion, Treasurer Bloomfield? I'll default to you. Essentially, it was to pick option 2.
Yeah, essentially it was to put option 2 out there on the motion and see that we can get it into our CIP to move forward with it.
And then you selected a company and a price?
Correct, and that was West Shore Services, I'm sorry. And then, yes, I did give you the price, which was $297,490.
It is in the CIP that's in the packet today.
Correct.
So are we, is the motion to add it, but it is in there?
It is in there, but I want to make sure that I guess we've had so many discussions on this and it's been tabled so much, I feel like I don't think we ever made a motion to put it in the CIP, even though you have it in there. I'm just covering all bases because I know how things operate.
Let's vote it out.
So you need a second on it?
We did.
I believe trustee Amos seconded it.
All right.
So we'll do a roll call vote.
Trustee Amos?
Yes.
Trustee Pratt?
No.
Trustee Cherry?
Yes.
Clerk Bochamp, no. Supervisor Martin?
Yes.
Treasurer Bloomfield?
Yes.
Okay, motion carried.
Okay, and the budget will be presented next meeting, the 20th, I believe that is, but if anybody wants to come, Brad will be back Monday, and hopefully by Wednesday, we'll have it pretty clean, so.
Thank you. Moving along to supervisor, a continuation of homeless and panhandling ordinance in committee discussion. Dakota, do you want to come speak to us? And then I've got some notes as well, and between the two of us, we'll cover this.
All right, do you want to speak with your notes first, and I'll fill in because you have the notes?
Yep.
All right.
So Dakota and I met today, and one of the things was we have multiple people that are interested, and the board showed interest in community involvement, so a committee with residents. As we talked, we thought a committee of 5 would be appropriate, just so we could stay focused and not have too big of a committee. The goal of the committee would be to develop an enforceable ordinance and provide resource solutions. The name of the committee would be Comstock Homeless, or we could do Charter Township of Comstock Homeless Committee. And then what we thought of is we could do a internet post, we could put it on the sign, we could advertise for the next 2 weeks to get more individuals. We received some community emails, and particularly one of them emphasized the need for a diverse board. And so we thought that an application period would get some qualified individuals to see if they would want to be interested. We would schedule interviews, and we were thinking to avoid any conflict from DDA meetings, planning commissions, or board meetings, that we could do the meetings on Tuesday. They would be from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. And we would like to put a cutoff date for the committee to come to an end, with the goal of developing the enforceable ordinance recommendations and recommendations to provide resources by January 27th. So that board and committee would commence by then. And we thought it would be appropriate to have a township board member. I would be glad to throw my hat in the ring, so that if the board chose me, just so you know, I would be interested. Obviously, if any other board members would want to be interested. We would like to select a resource, and we've gotten the Kalamazoo County Sheriff's Department. There's 2 individuals, one that would serve as a primary and one that would serve as a secondary. We also thought of another resource similar to like the VFW that could provide a direct line of resources to veterans. And then we thought that it would be a board of 2 additional residents. So it'd be a total of 5, 1 township board member, a Kalamazoo County Sheriff's Deputy, a resource from the VFW, and 2 residents. And then, so because there would be multiple individuals that would want to be on the board, I believe it would be appropriate for this board to authorize maybe a committee. Dakota and myself would be interested if you guys wanted more individuals to interview, but to select the qualified candidates in order to appoint them to the board. And the interview process would then make a recommendation to the township board seeking their approval, both for the committee members, and then once we get started, then any suggestions or recommendations, the ultimate authority would be the township board. Treasurer Bloomfield?
I think that sounds good, and thank you for your work on this, Dakota.
Clerk Bochamp, any questions?
Yeah, just to clarify, I'm sorry. You said one person from the county sheriff or two? One?
One, but then in that person's absence, he already has another person.
Like an alternate?
An alternate.
Okay. I like that, and I almost think that we could have more residents, because two doesn't feel like enough, and I know there's a lot of interest from our community, and I feel like we could use more voices from our residents. So I think we could increase the number of residents that we have, maybe by two more.
So then we would have a board of 7.
I think so.
Trustee Pratt?
I am in agreement with that. I think the number 5 is a little too low with the process you're going to have to go through with this and the depth and everything. I think having more people give input would be important to get the results. I also would like the idea to be floated, having somebody who is homeless or on the committee. And I think some of the resources in Kalamazoo or perhaps here that we could find an individual or individuals that would volunteer in that capacity. As I believe I mentioned in part in previous meetings, I was a line worker at the Kalamazoo State Hospital when this entire process as far as closing down the state hospitals took part. This was back in the late 1970s. So as a line worker, I certainly had no input on what the agenda was going to be. But even as line workers, we could see that there would be problems initially as well as down the road. And certainly we all are impacted by this. As I mentioned at the last meeting, you can go any place in the country and see the same issues. So this is a large issue. It's something that we are not going to be able to resolve here amongst ourselves. We're going to have input. State representatives, I think, would be handy to be consulting with once the committee gets going, because I think people need to acknowledge that this is and will be a political process. The state of Michigan is the ones that took the money away from the state hospitals and pushed those people out in the street. And they had halfway houses, they had other adult foster cares at the time, but we as line workers knew that was not going to be sufficient. And unfortunately, all of us see the results of that. And our law enforcement see it too, greatly, because we're going to have some issues and discussion here concerning changing, but a lot of people, they're unable to help themselves, although they do have a choice. As I knew back in the day I worked in the mental health system, we had a process called recipient rights, and that took over after the patient rights issue when they were hospitalized. And so they have a right to say, I don't want treatment. No, I don't want to go in the facility down in Kalamazoo. I want to be alone, or I want to be on my own. So there's going to be immense difficulties that some of us see now, and there's going to be other difficulties that we don't see now. So this is a large undertaking, but I congratulate those people who had the heart and the mind to take this on, but it's going to be a difficult task. And so if we could collectively work together, but I would like to see input from people who are homeless or who have been homeless, and to give input for this committee. But as the clerk mentioned, I think 5 is a way low number for this venture. And so that's it.
Thank you, Trustee Pratt. Trustee Amos?
I also agree this is going to be a very difficult task. However, we need to get started, so I'm all for it.
Thank you, Trustee Amos. Trustee Cherry?
I think more residents as well, and I would love to see a resident chair the committee, somebody maybe who has a background. I know there's a plethora of people out there, and you could choose somebody who was homeless and has went through the steps, because I myself know what it's like to be homeless with a child. So, and to pull yourself up from there and to utilize the resources available to you. So, you know, it would be nice to have somebody in that capacity chair the committee and kind of, or even a background, for example, your background with the state, you know, somebody who has that in their back pocket. It just seems to me that would be good. And you've done some amazing stuff on the moratorium committee, by the way, with all the information you gathered, but I would love to see, I don't know if Trustee Pratt or Clerk Beauchamp would be interested in being on the committee either. I know she's here all the time. She's here every day and can work closely with Dakota and the committee members. So that's just my 2 cents.
Thank you. And I don't think that we would have to, it's a board decision. I don't know we would have to limit it to one township board member. It could be possibly 2 board members. And then another thing to keep in mind for the 5 individuals is that possibly a resource from the VFW could also be a resident in conjunction with a resource. So then that would put that board to 3 residents. And then but those are the conversations that we need to have in order to figure out how many people we want. And then I would like to see some board action approving a committee and perhaps then determining the number of individuals on that committee and then how we would want to go about the interview process and then possibly who would chair it or how that would go. Dakota, do you have anything for us?
Yes and no. So I believe it was the mission announced today that they are cutting beds. I just saw it was 50 beds for males, 60 for females are going to be available starting tonight. So we'll probably see more homeless gathering out here in Comstock. That was just announced a couple hours ago. Outside of that, I do think that we can still make the board work with 7. I think having more input from people would be great. And then we can always bring in guest speakers for those resources that we can talk about later. I don't think here in Comstock we're going to solve the issue of the homeless population, but we got to at least get the ball rolling and hopefully be an example for other townships to move forward with.
Thank you, Dakota. And Dakota and I spoke earlier, maybe during that 2-week period while applicants are submitting their applications, then we could research presentations and start to form a dialogue of who we would want to come present. So maybe our first work of order would be for the board to determine if we want to do 7. Do we want 1 township board member or do we want 2 township board members?
Well, I think if we're going to up it to 2 township board members, then, hear me out, go to 8, because that way we still have, I mean, I know we have the VFW, but we'd like more resident. So, you know, does that make sense?
Yeah, I believe good practice would be an odd number. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's always going to be better to have an odd number because then you don't have ties on votes.
Okay, 9. I can keep going up.
Permission to speak, Supervisor Martin.
Yes, Treasurer Bloomfield.
I am of the thought that 7 is plenty, 5 is good. I would like to see more involvement from people coming and talking before the committee than a larger committee. And it's just the decision-making process moves forward in a more streamlined, manageable, I'm trying to think of how to word this, process where you have results. I think when you have a huge board, I think it's too many, and I think the discussion needs to come from the people that come to attend your meetings along with the board. So I prefer a smaller board, but that's just me from being on boards. Where I've been on boards where there's been 12, which is, 13 people, and it just seems like you just don't accomplish as much when you have as big of a board. A smaller board is more efficient, and more people sitting in the audience giving feedback is more important, because if you're listening to the people that are sitting there talking to you, you're getting more feedback at a more rapid pace.
Which completely makes sense.
Just my thought.
Well, no, and I do know, even though you prefer the small boards, I know when the moratorium committee merged with the planning commission, that's a pretty large board. And I think that you guys have done some phenomenal work on that board, even though it is kind of large. I mean, you guys have done some great work.
But there we knew what our end goal was and where we were headed, and you were on that board as well, so you know how well it worked. Well, yeah, pat yourself, it's all good, you were there. You know, so I'm just saying, it's not my decision, I'm just saying my thoughts, that I prefer to have a smaller board with more people coming and standing there talking. You know, you could have a board of 5, a board of 7, and you could have 6, 8, 10 homeless people there coming to the podium to talk and give all of those experiences. You know, and you're going to find a lot of different reasons why they're all out there.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of them. So that's just my thought.
And I think if we were to keep a smaller board, I would be in favor of 5, because I think it keeps, I know input is good, but it keeps the focus narrowed within a short time frame. And I think that would be a huge emphasis on the application process, and then why this board would take action to conduct like a committee to interview. That way those individuals on that board were, I'm not opposed to 7, but sometimes the more opinions and ideas can kind of spin your wheels. And then the other thing Dakota and I talked about was, once this committee would end, then we would like to move along with maybe like a community outreach one that could more target resources and low income and blight, but have this committee narrowed down and focused to just the homeless.
Okay. I'd be in favor of 7, especially if we want to potentially put 2 board members on. And then that way, like I said, we just kind of, and it's still an odd number. I didn't think about that part.
Clerk Beauchamp?
I would be in favor of 7. I think what you've laid out otherwise is good. I would put my name in the hat to be on the interview committee. I would like to be involved with that process.
Would you want to serve on the board or just on the committee? I know you have quite the chore of things to do here.
If you needed a board member, I would, but I do have a full plate.
Yeah.
But I could if needed.
Is there any other board member that's eager to want to be on the board, or would we have it more, add more residents?
I would love to, I just do not have that to really put into it as much as it needs to be put into.
Thank you. Trustee Amos?
I don't have the time right now to do this, but I think I would be in favor of the 7.
Thank you. Trustee Pratt?
Yes, 7 to me sounds like a good number. I think with that number we can get input. I think it can be a number on a committee or a board that can be active and get through issues quickly. And there's just the response from a hearing so far, there's people that are actively would like to be on that. I would be available to give input, but time-wise also at this point it'd be difficult for me on Tuesday or actually any other day. But I'd love to give input, but I think we've got a number of people here. And one person spoke tonight, and he seems to be quite interested and has sent a letter in. So I think we would get a good start by what we have. And I would encourage other people in the community also to support or sending letters or to be interviewed for this project. Again, it's going to be intense. It's going to be long. And again, it's going to be, I believe, a need for political consults with our representatives in this area to get backing and to make whatever the product we end up with be more far-reaching than just our community right here.
Thank you. Clerk Beauchamp, that would be fantastic to have your help with the interviews and the scheduling, reaching out and coordinating all that. That would be fantastic. Would the board approve, or I'll just have conversation before we make a motion, but it sounds like we would make a board of 7, a committee of 7, and then we would appoint, I would like to be in the interviews. Clerk Beauchamp and Dakota showed interest. So there would be 3 of us that would be interested to do the interviews. And so if we
I can
made.
be on that too, so.
And Scott, so Scott could be involved, and so we make that into a motion.
And just to clarify too, since we don't have an application now for this, I think we could use the application that we have that we use for like the Planning Commission and DDA, which is on our website.
That would
So
be
some
great.
people could formally apply with that application.
So I make a motion to form a Charter Township of Comstock Homeless Committee with 7 members and forming an interview committee with Superintendent Hess, Supervisor Martin, Clerk Beauchamp, and Dakota.
Support.
Motion made by Supervisor Martin, supported by Trustee Pratt. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. And I think we pretty much got the ball rolling, right?
Yes, so I think because the motion didn't state exactly the goal and the end time, when we bring it back and we appoint the members, perhaps we could just spell that out in a motion so it's clear what the committee is formed to do. And if you said a 2-week process, so it starts this week, so the end of next week would be the end of the application process. Is that what you had in mind?
We were thinking 2 weeks from whenever the form would be made or rolled out. So 2 weeks from the rollout time. And this January 27th, we just looked at a Tuesday to end, but that wasn't set in stone. So
okay.
From the date of launching publicly, and then maybe at that board meeting, would then the township board want to form a mission statement, or would you leave that up to the committee? When you do that motion of the appointments of the members and the goals and the timeframes, just so it's clear?
I was just thinking the committee. I mean, if you're gonna have such a diverse panel, I think that would be really good.
I'm in favor of that. Trustee Amos, anything left?
No.
Trustee,
If you need somebody to volunteer for this, I'll think about it.
thank you. Trustee Pratt, anything?
Nothing further.
Clerk Beauchamp?
Nothing else.
Trustee Treasurer Bloomfield?
Yes, I have something. I would like you to go back over where you were thinking about who you're putting on the board. I heard you say 1 from the VFW, 2 residents, a deputy from the county, 2 people from the township, and I believe that 1 would include Dakota. And I was thinking, I don't think this was brought up, along with another board member. I don't think this was brought up, but I would like to see the community center involved because the community center does deal with a lot of the less fortunate. So I would like to see if that 7th position, somebody could talk to Mary from the community center about having somebody from, and maybe even her, I don't know how busy she is, but I think it's important that the community center is involved if they would like to be.
And Dakota will be involved he will not be on the committee, he will serve as a staff.
Okay.
Just like a planner would. So would the board feel it appropriate that we, at this point, name the 7, as far as there would be like a motion to have 4 residents, there would be a township board member, a resource from the Kalamazoo County Sheriff, and then a resource from the VFW. But I think if is Mary a resident in Comstock?
Yes, she is.
So perhaps she could be a dual-edged resident. She could be also a resource and a resident.
Would she still need to apply as well and go through the same process, or it would just be a?
That's up to this board, so.
So, and then
I need to ask her if she's interested first.
I suppose we could save some interviews if the board wanted to approve me to be on the committee. If the board now wanted to approve a Kalamazoo County Sheriff's deputy, a resource from the VFW, and then that would leave us with just the residents to interview. That might simplify.
Did you still want 2? Because we mentioned 2 board members, honey.
Clerk Beauchamp's going to assist in scheduling interviews and helping with that. It's sort of just, at this point, it was just one township board member.
Gotcha.
Just to clarify, have you talked to a deputy? I know Captain Bishop did say he would like to be part of the process. I don't know if he meant him himself, but you have talked to a deputy who would want to
Yes,
sit on it? Okay.
him himself will do it.
He will,
And then
okay.
he has already a committed alternate.
Okay.
So I'd like to make a motion for the homeless committee to have one township board member, the township supervisor. Number 2, a Kalamazoo County Sheriff's deputy. Number 3, a resource from the Kalamazoo Post, VFW. And then that would be 4 Comstock Township residents.
Support.
Motion made by Supervisor Martin, supported by Trustee Cherry. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you, Dakota. We've formed a committee so far, and we'll get these interviews going.
Sweet, just for a timeline, because I saved it. So we talked about having the application deadline be done by the 17th. We review everything by the 20th, and then have interviews done before the next board meeting in November.
Clerk Beauchamp,
Sorry, getting water. So we only have one board meeting in November. It's the third Monday. So that gives a little bit more time if that's what you were hoping for. We don't have one the first because of the election.
that good with you, Dakota?
That's good with me, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Moving along to Superintendent, Capital Improvements Projects 2026.
Okay, we kind of went over this a brief. Like I said, this document, when we do the CIP, is a moving document because sometimes we put in our CIP plans or our wish list and some things come out. For instance, probably 3 or 4 years ago, or maybe longer than that, the Parks was looking at a fishing pier, which you see up in, I think it was 2024. They were trying to get grants for that. Finally, the grant pool dried up, so that one eventually came off. So when you get down to the 2026, because of funding, we were trying to just identify the Neal Street Park, which we just put the pickleballs in, that stuff is still in need of grass and landscape and fencing. That wasn't in the original plan, just because they wanted to get those pickleball courts open so that they could move forward. And then as you see, the election equipment came in, but we're still, that's kind of gonna be a moving target. Maybe the state will fund that. Old football field site work, the Parks had they want to utilize that piece of ground there, and that would be some excavating just to get back there off of Chubb Street. And then they'd utilize that flat area for archery and different other projects. And then I did put the weather sirens on because that was nobody asked me, but that's been a concern right now to be able to plug that in. Everything else got pushed. If you see down farther, and that's probably going to come off, the housing rehab program, that's the Lombard property we own. We still have $368,000 from the county, but the MISTA funds were not there this year, and I don't know going forward because a lot of MISTA stuff is getting time out because of the federal government right now with the, and so I'm not sure when that'll come. So I am actually working with the land bank to see if we can kind of move that into the land bank and let them, because they have an initiative now to develop housing instead of just selling the vacants and the vacant land. So I know he's going to be coming, the land bank, to do a presentation on some brownfield ideas that he has for some of the vacant properties to be able to build some affordable housing. But so that's to come. So that's kind of where the committee kind of puts it in. It's really not that they vote and say, we want this in, as we just kind of put these in and then we squeeze it and then we go squeeze a little more and say, what is the true need? Because if the election equipment comes and says tomorrow that's mandatory, you have to put a deposit down, we've kind of got to, make that a priority. So it kind of boils down to that. So with the motion, I'll begin with Brett to put in what you guys want, and then we'll kind of massage it to see where we come out on that 20%, okay? So, and then, like I said, the I will have the whole packet. It's just, we adopt it for, till 2029. It's basically just the projects we add, the ones we've done, and everything like that. And then, the fire department updates their CIP, which everybody knows they're looking at a fire station, but that's funded through the fire department's own millage money, so there wouldn't be anything that's going out to a I guess a vote or anything like that, or a bond at this point. And then the parks is in here, and then like I said, the DDA, I know they have a meeting, I think it's Wednesday, tomorrow, no, Wednesday, 2 days. And I presume they'll come back to the board and ask for some type of funding, you know, to continue some of the projects they're doing, because they don't collect enough right now, so. That in a nutshell.
Thank you, Superintendent Hess. Any questions from any board members? Moving along to reports, we have September.
I got one more. I have the, did I have that on there? Yeah. Oh, yeah, the draft policy. So a couple meetings ago, I had a couple requests from the board to add a couple things, and I got with Rob Thal, because Rob looked over this and kind of instrumental to, I think, to put in what statutory duty. So I let Rob kind of redline this whole thing, and if he wants to explain anything and what he did on the red line.
Yeah, if I could briefly just address, you looked at a prior version of this. Superintendent Hess contacted me about reviewing the document, making comments, and then addressing what the statutory duties were, since the basis of the attorney use would be based on, you know, statutory duties and departmental budgets and so forth. And so in item 3 under contracts or under contacts, one thing that I added, attorney matters directly related to their statutory duties, that was already in there, and such other duties as assigned by the township board, because the board can give you extra duties, and if you're performing those extra duties, you may need attorney services for those extra duties. And then I said see below listed statutory duties, and then went through each of the positions and listed out the statutory duties of those positions. So that's kind of a comprehensive list there. And then I added all emails and letters to and from the attorney shall be copied to the superintendent. Just the superintendent should be aware of, you know, what the requests are, what the questions are, and would be up to speed on, you know, how the attorney is being used. Then going into item 5, board approval for major issues. So engagements likely to result in significant costs that will exceed the budget for township attorney services require board approval unless immediate action is necessary. So if it's something that we know is a bigger project, that's gonna, you know, that will exceed what the budgetary amounts that you attribute at the end, you know, when you do your budget, then that would have to come back to the board. Unless it's some immediate action was required, then the board would be advised and a meeting would be scheduled as soon as practical. And sometimes, you know, that could involve litigation that, you know, if it's at the end of the year, we're, you know, up against what the budget allows for, we may still have to file or get into court on something immediately. But the board would be made aware of that. And then under number 6, cost control, pre-approval of major expenses. So legal services anticipated to exceed the budget for attorney services shall require board authorization. So again, if it's a big project, you know, we should try to acquire board authorization for that ahead of time. Annual review, the township board shall review attorney use and costs annually to ensure accountability. I added that this may be a part of the annual budget process. It doesn't have to necessarily be something separate, but when you're preparing the budget, you're going to have budgetary categories for attorney fees, attorney use, and just you're going to review that when you do your budget. And that's really the revisions that were made, and then if you turn the page, you can see all the different statutory duties of the different offices.
Any questions?
I have a question for Attorney Thal. Since we're doing this a little differently than we have in the past, and here it says that the bills will be presented to us by department. So currently it's like general, and then we have parks, and we have ordinance, but then you will break it down by clerk, treasurer, superintendent.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I mean, I thought about that. It's going to have to be itemized a little differently, because normally there's a general fund item, but if you're doing your budget so that, you know, you're putting X dollars for attorney fees to the clerk's office, you know, then if it's a clerk request, that would get billed against the clerk budget for attorney fees, is how I'm assuming that'll work. Enforcement would be under, you know, an enforcement category. So we would put it under department. So it will take a little bit of time to figure that out in our billing programs. It's a little different than what we do now.
And I know, I think it was Trustee Pratt asked to, you know, to copy, you know, get copies of all emails that are sent out, anything. And I think when Rob and I talked about all emails will be copied to the superintendent, and then my thought is to put those in a lock file that only the board can get into in one of our files, maybe a passcode, and that all those emails are in there, so if anybody wanted to view any of the emails, just so, you know, it's transparent to the board, because a lot of it could be client privilege, so it would only be locked and shared with those, so that way anybody could access those. I would just, if I was CC'd on one, I would just put it in there, or if I sent the attorney something, I'd put it in there, and it would be in a folder, and everybody has access. If you don't, I can tell you how to get it to those, so.
Good.
Any questions, comments? Trustee Cherry? Trustee Amos?
Good.
Trustee Pratt?
No.
Clerk Bochamp? Treasurer Bloomfield?
Yes, I do. I have a question for Attorney Thal. First off, I'm not sure, do we have a contract with you since we no longer have Catherine? Scott?
It's really, there's not a contract, it's an ongoing service that we use, like just, we do it with our engineer too. It's just that we, you know, every year, just assume that that's our attorney, and then they send us our rates if the rates change, so.
Okay. And since we have Attorney Thal, I take it our rates haven't changed?
No, I don't have a different rate than Attorney Kaufman.
Okay, thank you. And then I very seldom pick up the phone and use the attorney. I tend to call MTA. But my question is, maybe you can answer this for me. If I am dealing with board members and office personnel that I feel like I cannot trust, who do I go to? If it's something that isn't on my statutory duty, who do I turn to as the treasurer for the township if it has something to do with other than my statutory duties? Where do I go? Is it just, oh, well? Because that's what this policy is saying to me.
I mean, it does
And I don't
say
think
that.
I don't think that the people that I represent in this community appreciate that.
We don't. CCing the superintendent on all of these things could be a conflict of interest. I think that's, you guys should discuss
Please.
further. Probably.
I just feel like being the liaison between the boards, and with the past things that have happened in this municipality, I feel like you're leaving some of us out there at a real risk. And I feel like some of the things that have happened, we don't need any more risk in this township than we're already taking by things that are happening. So I am not for this policy. I firmly believe that after looking through the bills with my deputy and going through them and the new way of billing, I'm waiting for the next bill to come, but from the last one I saw, the majority of our bills from legal counsel are coming from ordinance. And I would like, before this passes, this is just my thought, I would like to see actually a new billing system and see where we are really spending our money, because I do not think it's with any of these board members. I think it is with our ordinance and taking people to court. And that's when the last board meeting I brought up, which I'm thinking Supervisor Martin was taking off from what we had discussed at the last board, of another committee to help people that are struggling in the community, not being able to deal with issues that they're having from the ordinance violations they're receiving. And I just really think I would like to hold off on this until we see the bills come in again and with the new billing situation that was put in. And another thing that kind of disturbs me is, and I'm going to sit up here and be honest, it's my understanding that there were 3 board members that went behind closed doors with the superintendent and helped write this policy with our 2 attorneys. And I just found that very disturbing, because I feel like my usage of your knowledge is being stopped that helps me to make decisions, Attorney Thal. Thank you.
I guess one thing that, this discussion raised is, with all emails, letters to and from the attorney shall be copied to the superintendent. I do think there has to be an exception if there is a complaint about the superintendent. Obviously, those things would not be copied to him. So I think that does need to be an exception to the rule in there, but.
Thank you, Attorney Thal. Any other board member feedback?
I agree with Sandy about how calling the lawyer, because I've only called the lawyer's office, I think, twice in all the years I've been here. And I had a legal question that I wanted to answer because I thought the law was being broken. So if the law is being broken, I don't want to ask somebody else. I want to ask the lawyer. So I don't know how we would handle that, but that's my thought.
Anything, Attorney Thal, on that?
Well, I think, those are good. That's a good point. Sandy raised a good point. I mean, I can try to build in some things for those processes into the policy. Ultimately, it's your policy as a board.
Do most municipalities have an attorney use policy for their township board?
Not really, no. I mean, some do. I mean, I'm not going to say that they don't, but, a number do, but probably most of them don't, but.
Treasurer Bloomfield, I see your microphone's red.
Yes, thank you. Like I said, I feel like this was a witch hunt after those of us being able to use our attorney to get clarifications on important decisions that are being made by this board. And I feel like this policy takes that away. And I also feel like the information that was shared with this board was not thoroughly researched. I mean, when we saw graphs and charts, there were people left off of it that were using the attorney. It was pretty biased. So I would like to wait until we see more information coming back from our attorney firm as to where we're actually spending the money. Once the billing comes in, like this subcommittee that was put together without the rest of the board's knowledge that did this policy.
Oh, I'm not aware of that. I mean.
I'm also confused on what subcommittee put together the policy.
I wrote the policy.
As we directed Superintendent Hess, and my understanding was Superintendent Hess worked with Rob Thal. So I'm not sure what this subcommittee, who it consisted of. I don't know anyone else it consisted of. And this has been a board discussion with our former attorney who asked us to put this together. We are, as we know, way over budget on our attorney fees. So we were trying as a board to come up with a policy to rein those in and all be on the same page. That's what this policy is reflecting. So I'm really confused as why there is an issue now when we have been talking about this since the beginning of the year, or at least since the spring, to come up with this policy. I'm confused.
I also am somewhat confused on that because Attorney Kaufman asked us, as I recall, to specifically, it would make her job a lot easier if we had a policy addressing the issues that came up after our budget for legal consults was way overboard. And so this is a result of that, from my understanding. The graphs and charts that were used in my presentations, if those are the ones you're referring to, they were based on the numbers that were presented to everyone, actually, here on the board. So those numbers were not made up. And there were some issues that came up that no one, from my understanding on the board, was aware of certain consultations with the attorney at that point in time. And it only came up after we looked into the data. And so, again, I may be mistaken, but that's where it started as far as getting a policy. It was a request from Attorney Kaufman to make her job a little easier because she felt she was locked in between a rock and a hard place on certain things. My words, not hers. And so, again, I'm somewhat confused also.
I'm confused as well. I wish I knew what happened to Attorney Kaufman. She was a great attorney. Rob, you're great as well, but I think from my new tenure here at the township, she served the township well and shared she was pretty neutral, and she worked for the board. I believe that we took a vote for all of us board members to be able to have access to the attorney, and I don't recall where the policy came in, because I don't know if in that motion that we made for the township officials, including trustees, to have access, and then the hired staff to go through the channels that they need to go through, and the deputies to go through the channels that they need to go through. I'm not sure in that motion where a creation of an attorney use policy came from, so I've been a little bit thrown off. I believe the township supervisor here in Comstock Township doesn't really have too many duties. And so if you look back through how this organizational chart works, what would the township supervisor be able to contact the attorney for? And A through O, I was a little naive when I ran through office. I thought maybe the alphabet would go to Z, but it just only goes to O. And A through O has been given away without my consent as an elected supervisor, while our township website indicates that the supervisor assumes their duties at their discretion, which I've done, but I still don't have. So this policy doesn't, for those who elected me, I don't feel like it serves the supervisor's office very well. Thank you. Any further board member comments?
I'm all about policy. I mean, that is what it is. I work for the state, so I deal with policy, on a daily basis, and I think anything written down is good. It's something that we can follow. It's something everybody's on the same page with. So that's just.
Thank you, Trustee Cherry. Trustee Amos, anything further?
Nope, I'm good.
Trustee Pratt?
Just one comment, that on your duties, as was discussed at one recent board meeting from one of the board members, as well as Attorney Kaufman, specified those duties. And when you ran for office, if I may, those duties were the same as they are now for you. This board had chosen back in 2016 to go before 2016, before I was on the board initially, to go in a different direction as far as a strong supervisor, and went at that point in time to a superintendent. When the board at that point chose that direction, that subsequently limited the duties that a supervisor here had normally done. And so that's where, and again, that was addressed at that meeting. I don't have the date before me right now, but that was addressed. And it's unfortunate that you feel this way, but that was addressed many years ago before both you and I were on this board.
Thank you.
So I guess that poses a question of if a prior board's decision-making are binding, and if an elected office can be given away without consent. I think that raises a significant question. And I know there's MCL 42.10, but there's no Attorney General opinion on MCL 42.10. And I think that that is questionable. And so you're talking an election without consent of the elected to give up their statutory duties without their consent. I find it strange.
And, yeah, I mean, it's not to argue with you either about it, but under 4210, you know, everybody's one vote on the board, and the board can always vote to give that power to a superintendent, whether there's a supervisor elected that says, hey, I don't want you to give away my powers. If the rest of the board votes to say give away the powers, then they're given away to the superintendent. To what extent, they determine that. So it really, I understand where you're coming from, but at the same time, it's a board decision as to whether the supervisor in a charter township has those powers, you know, A through O, or whether a superintendent might or have some of those powers. But that's, whether you're elected to that position or not, the board can at any time decide to give those powers to a superintendent or take those powers away.
And it's interesting. There's a lot to it. I was just curious, is that the only board position that does that?
Yes, yep.
Any further board member comments?
I would just like to give a reminder, because we've talked about this at numerous board meetings, in addition to the duties being given to a superintendent when you ran. So the duties were not the supervisors when you ran. We have also talked about a contract. So we do have a contract with our superintendent. So it's twofold, and this board did vote to confirm or renew his contract. And Supervisor, if you wish, we could do another vote for superintendent, but this is what this board has also confirmed that we want.
And just to reiterate, this conversation was according to names, titles, and not directly an individual. This is how this policy is wrote for positions and duties, and we weren't talking directly.
And I will point out, in the duties, you know, it still involves sitting as a township legislator. And so anything that's coming before the board, any board member under this policy, a board member, you know, clerk, supervisor, treasurer, trustees would have the ability to ask for legal opinion or assistance on matters coming before the board as you sit up here and make decisions. So it's not cutting you out from all access in that regard, you know, but and it would be with regard to additional duties assigned, those types of things, I can provide legal advice on. And then the other statutory duties, yes, albeit it is reduced because we do have a superintendent. But I think it's important to note for everybody that the township supervisor, clerk, treasurer, and trustees may contact the attorney on matters directly related to their statutory duties or other assigned duties. So to the extent it's things that you're going to be dealing with at the board table, you'd be allowed to contact me. If it's things specifically with a different specific statutory duty, fine. You know, and what other things would there be? I mean, I suppose complaints, you know, we could take into consideration complaints would be something that's different, that any board member would have the ability to make a complaint under your policies. You know, we could amend it to add in things like that.
Is this policy necessary?
I just had a question. So, for example, Treasurer Bloomfield sits on the Planning Commission. She could contact you concerning, because that's other duties, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
But would this policy control the Planning Commission? This is just a policy for the Township Board.
Well, the Planning Commission has its own budget, and they have to stay within their budget. So typically, a planning commission is intended to operate independently within their budget. So no, I mean, because it doesn't take into consideration planning commissioners at all, or the planning commission at all, or say the zoning board of appeals, or, I mean, it really, you know, how about enforcement? So, you know, I think about like our treasurer said, you know, a lot of the bill is enforcement. Most of the bill is enforcement activity, I believe. How is that directed through this policy? I don't know that it does. You know, so does it need more tweaking? I don't, you know.
Permission to speak.
Treasurer Bloomfield?
In my opinion, it needs a lot of work, but the question was not answered when Supervisor Martin asked before he was interrupted, is this policy necessary? Like I said, knowing what I see with the bills coming in, where the ordinance is eating up the majority of the budget. It is not any of these board members, it's enforcement. So again, is the policy necessary? Knowing what, well, I guess knowing what I know, but the rest of the board wouldn't because they don't see the bills.
Sounds like that outreach group can't get started soon enough. Any further board member comments?
I would like to answer that question. If the board deems it necessary, it's necessary. And that's what is before us today for the board to vote on the necessity of this policy. And given the history of the discussions of our board, the board felt it was necessary when they directed Superintendent Hess to work with Attorney Thal to draft this policy. So I would like to take action on this evening. And whether that's we talk about some changes that we talked about that were mentioned, or if we just direct it to be brought back to the next meeting, I do think we should take action this evening.
I'd like to see the changes that some of the changes that were talked about. And then it can be brought back.
Okay, so I would move that Superintendent Hess and Attorney Thal work on the changes that were discussed this evening and bring it back to our next board meeting.
Support.
Motion made by Clerk Beauchamp, supported by Trustee Pratt. Do we want to have any further discussion? I would just like to note that we're still spending money on attorney expenditures for something that I thought that we had resolved. So there's a motion, there's support. Roll call vote.
Trustee Amos?
No.
Trustee Cherry?
Yes.
Clerk Beauchamp, yes. Treasurer Bloomfield?
No.
Trustee Pratt?
Yes.
Supervisor Martin?
No.
Okay, motion failed. That's a tie.
Never lost my agenda, so bear with me. Okay, so now we're moving along to reports. We have the September 2025 fire report. We have the fire department September 2025 public relations report. We have bills paid October 1st through the 2nd, 2025. Informational and future action items. There are none under here. And we are moving along to public comment on agenda and non-agenda items. A citizen may state their name and address and may speak only one time for no more than 3 minutes. This time may not be given to another citizen to extend their time. The person speaking has the floor, and no other citizen shall speak during someone else's time. During this time, you'll be making statements to the board without discussion from board members, but you're welcome to make an appointment with the supervisor or superintendent to discuss your comments further. The contact information is located by the door. Please keep comments clean and respectful.
Hi, Tammy Keeler. One thing I got to say about this policy is he's not the one that
please direct to the board
that put the superintendent on the board. He is a hiree. He was not elected by us. I think you and Mr. Pratt's just as guilty for calling the attorney and emailing the attorney. She even admitted it before she left. He sent her a letter. So he's just as guilty as on the budget. Sitting there acting like Mr. Innocent, he's not.
Point of order.
And the one that is, that put down Mr. Doorleg
Point of order.
is a vet himself.
Point of order was called by Trustee Pratt.
Mr. Chair, if you would address that issue, because this in this.
Attorney Thal, I thought I wasn't supposed to speak at public comment.
I'm not sure what the point of order is.
It's my First Amendment right to say whatever I had to say.
As far as the order of the comments, and the residents have been directed at this meeting, as in other meetings, to address to the chair, not to individuals.
I think I need to call a point of order. We are interrupting a resident's 3 minutes. I think we should rewind the timer and back the bus up and maybe start over. Ma'am, please address the board.
Okay, I'm trying here. Okay. My time ain't back yet. I want my 3 minutes back, please. Thank you. As I was saying, Mr. Pratt's just as guilty of charging, things for the attorney. It was even admitted to. He wouldn't even tell us what was in the emails that he wrote her. As far as the superintendent goes, he is not an elected official. He's just a hiree, and he was hired in back then before they left. You got a new board now. You guys really don't need him. You don't. Because all he's done is ruin this township and put it in the ground. And as far as the comments that were put on Facebook about Nate, the guy's a veteran himself, and it should have never been put on there. Oh, his family's got it, believe me. And then when are we good guys going to tell the taxpayers that they have to pay $100 extra for the police? It was on the news. It's in the Kalamazoo Gazette. It's to give them more power, to be around 24/7, in which they're not now. State police are in here, but yeah. There's so much deceit on this board. I can't believe the conniving that some of you guys are doing on this board. Get rid of the superintendent. Supervisor's doing a great job. He's not putting our town in the ground. He has let us have our rights. I grew up in Comstock. I've never seen nothing like this before in my life except for the old board. The good old boys aren't there no more, guys. So back up the bus. You're here now. The taxpayers are paying you to do your job for township. It seems like you are not doing it. Get rid of the superintendent. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Karen Height. I have just a couple of things. It keeps coming up that the fire department has their own budget, but yet when they wanted to get new firemen put in for raises for certain ones, it has to come before the board, and the board votes on it. Well, I would like to say that I think that Nicole Beauchamp should recuse herself from any votes on that because her brother is the fire chief, and I think that's a conflict of interest. A little further onto the fire department, Fire Chief Beauchamp's wife is the secretary and does all the payroll for the fire department. I also think that's a conflict of interest. It's nepotism. When you have two family members working in the same department, one's over the other one, how do we know exactly where our taxpayer dollars are going? They could be hid anywhere. As far as this policy goes for who can talk to the attorney, I think Treasurer Bloomfield brought up a very valid point, that if there's an issue that any one of you, or even the other employees in the building that are under Superintendent Hess, if they have an issue and they, and it happens to be with him or with another board member or whatever, why can't that person go to our attorney and get legal advice on it? And why does it have to go to the superintendent, who may be buddy-buddy with the person that was causing the problem? I don't know, but I think that's a very poor decision. I think it's going to lead you into legalities, lawsuits for defamation of character. I think all of you need to work together and stop this nonsense. He said, she said, well, this person did that, so now I'm going to turn around and get them because they said this about me. Wrong. You work together. I don't think everything needs to go to the superintendent under certain circumstances. And like he said, he would put things, any emails he put, in a lockbox or a locked file. Well, what if one of the board members is complaining about one of the other board members? It's in that locked file and then that board member can see it. No. That should be under attorney-client privilege, not for public knowledge to the other people, unless that person that is making the call to the attorney says, yeah, go ahead, I don't care if you make it public knowledge to everybody. Other than that, I don't think so. I think it's a poor policy. It needs a lot of work, if at all. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Hello again, my name is Jason Tollers, I'm a resident of Comstock. This election, Comstock Public Schools will be asking for a $500,000 increase. The funds expected to raise will go to provide air conditioning for our high school, a new roof for our middle school, additional classrooms for our overcrowded elementary, and many more desperately needed renovations. Comstock Public Schools in good faith has supported this community in standing against the proposed Best Factory, and I ask that this community and board do the same in return and vote yes on millage. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I have in front of me a copy of the minutes from August 18, 2025, in which Treasurer Bloomfield made a motion to have Superintendent Hess create a policy in which anyone needing to have legal counsel who works under him as a hired employee needs to go through him for that legal counsel. This included deputies, the board, everybody that was discussed of having to talk with legal counsel. The board voted unanimously to have Deputy Hess or Superintendent Hess create that policy. It's stated in the minutes from August 18. Thanks.
Thank you, ma'am. Any further resident comments this evening?
Hi, my name is John Charlie. It's very weird, the atmosphere here tonight. It's a couple things that's just, kind of bothering me, that we've had this litigation for about 2.5, maybe 3 years now that we're probably spending a lot of money on. So I'm guessing that, that big portion of the bill and everything that we hear from the attorneys is probably that. We should get that litigation just tossed out, just written, make our amends and everything like that. Next thing is we got some board members talking about, how much we're spending and everything, but then send certified letters to the attorney that cost township money and attorney money. Where does that fall in the category of let's save money? Let's save it. I don't understand it there. But you send a certified letter, I don't know. I think certified letters cost money. The attorney can tell me yes or no on that, maybe. I don't know. I don't really know what a certified letter is. It just sounds like it costs a lot of money. I just wish we would work together. This policy and everything that you guys have in front of you tonight, it's very weird because if a board member has a conflict with another board member and the superintendent's CC'd on it and everything, I just feel like it needs to be attorney-client privilege, not everyone. If it's a major board thing that we're talking about, like the best system, everyone could be on that. That's totally fine, but when it's conflict and everything like that, it shouldn't be everyone be able to see that. That should be attorney-client privilege. You know, and I feel like we should have voted on the sirens tonight to get those. I know the deputy, the treasurer have, you know, worked tirelessly on that. And I know a lot of people in the community, a lot of elderly people that I mow, I snowplow for and everything like that want these sirens now and not later. It's one of those things, prices keep going up and everything, especially probably with the tariffs. You're probably going to see a 5 to 6% increase if we don't get those sirens installed next year. I know with my lawnmowers and salt and everything, I'm already seeing for next year about 8 to 10% increase from what I've seen this year. And we've seen a 4% increase this year. Stuff is going up, and I just wish we get it done and over with now. It's just like one of those things that if the fire department wants to build a new building, do it now. Don't wait 5 years, because in 5 years it might cost another $500,000. I just wish we would get together on the board and everything like that and stop fighting. It would be really good. And for the community outreach thing, I'll definitely be putting application in for that, because I want to help this community get better. And I do have a couple people that I think would be good for the board. I had a homeless guy work for me a couple of years ago, and he's finally back on his feet and everything. And I think he would be a good candidate.
Thank you, sir. Any further resident comment this evening? Moving along to board member comments. Treasurer Bloomfield.
I have nothing, thank you.
Clerk Beauchamp.
I have nothing tonight.
Trustee Pratt.
Yes, just a couple of things here. I forgot at our last meeting to mention at the festival, which again was a great festival put on by our staff and the DDA, that the library had a presentation there too, and a table. And I inadvertently forgot to mention them when I mentioned some other parties for the township. So I'd like to get on track and congratulate them for a job well done. The other thing I overlooked at that point in time too was our fire department. Some of the stats in the last meeting, they came up in the leadership board, as they term it, for the state of Michigan, quite high. And I think that's something that we all should feel good about. Concerning the Michigan prevention installers, they ranked number 6 in the state out of the 20 top installers, and for fire alarms and smoke alarms, et cetera. And all the years, leaderboard was mentioned too, and in that our fire department came in 10th, and scoring way higher than many municipalities, much greater in size than Comstock. So I think we all should feel proud in that fact and know that we have some good hands here to protect us and our families. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Pratt. Trustee Amos?
I'd just like to also thank Will and Sandy for all the work that they did on this siren thing. He did a lot of work on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Amos. Trustee Cherry?
Thank you, Trustee Pat, for bringing that up, that we do need to recognize all of our staff. So it's really important. They do an awesome job. So also, I believe we did vote to put the sirens in the budget, did we not? So I believe that passed. So, and thanks everybody for the comments.
Thank you, Trustee Cherry. Attorney Thal, I've got a question. Since I chaired the board meeting, I have received quite a bit of board member comments directed towards me for public comment. And I can't control what others say. I may be related to somebody. I may see somebody in passing. I may have gone to school with them. But at the end of the day, when I sit here, I control my words, but I can't take what somebody else says at the podium. And so I would like you to clarify at some point what other individuals say at that podium and what we as board members can do up here. Because when I read this every time, I say that we will not be making discussion. So if you want to get at the podium and fling arrows or mud or sing the Star Spangled Banner, you've got 3 minutes. And I believe we've had this conversation about interrupting decorum and how someone would interpret what that would be. So my board member comment would be, I may not agree with the things that get said at the podium, but as an elected official, I don't control their speech. And so if you could emphasize to my other elected board members that I work up here with, how that works and what, as far as a chair goes, on how I would need to handle that, or what I'm responsible for or not responsible for, that would help me out.
I would just have one question in that regard, is do we have any policy other than what's on the agenda as our public comment policy? Or is it just that statement on the agenda?
Just on the agenda.
Okay.
Like, for example, superintendent has for someone to mention his job and his position. I'm not in favor of that, but if that individual wanted to type that in an email, they could send that to the board. But also the way that this writes, they could take it to the podium as of how this goes. So, and there's many other matters. There's people that fling arrows and mud at me as well, and I just sit here and I listen. But I take a lot of slack for what people say, but I'm not the one that said it. So if you could help that.
Yeah, what I'd like to do is be able to address it in like an email or something to the board so that everybody understands what what is involved in the public comment and what the purpose of public comment is and why it is required at every meeting and what the extent of public comment is. So, I guess I'd like to be able to give you kind of a formal response to that.
Yeah, and I'm here for positivity and productivity, and I would like that my other board members know that if I sit here in this middle chair and I'm cheering the microphone, that like I'm not doing my job or I'm not doing a bad job, but I also do toe the line when it comes to people at the podium with speech, and I know that could get dicey and vulnerable, so I'd
like to just be able to advise the whole board on what that involves.
Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
Any further member comments? This meeting is adjourned.